Welcome back to the TD Ameritrade Network. Jack Dorsey's Twitter reporting, and Wall Street not a big fan of the results. We're going to talk Dorsey and other CEOs that have been under scrutiny. Joining us here this morning is Lucia Annunzio, joining us, the president and CEO of the Center for High Performance. Great to have you back.
Good morning. Thank you, Oliver. I always enjoy coming. I appreciate it.
We're glad to have you here. We've got Nick Theodorakis and Alex Coffey here for the conversation as well with this. So, Jack Dorsey first. Is his biggest problem right now the government, or is it just shareholders that want answers at this point? I mean, he's got a lot of people coming after him.
Well, I'm going to say something totally different. I think his biggest problem is his corporate culture. I think there's too much infighting, too much politics. They don't trust one another. They need innovation. They have to grow. Innovation doesn't stem from internal competition. Competition has to be outside.
I feel like that's Facebook. Yeah. But Twitter too, I guess. Anybody on the social front at this point.
I think that he says all the right leadership behaviors, but there's nothing about his company that emulates those behaviors. He's an inspiring human being, but that's not enough. That's a myth about leadership, that if you're inspiring and if you're the classic charismatic leader, you're going to make it. I don't think that's true.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too, because his Twitter is, very much that kind of inspiring. He connects with people. He does, spirit trips and stuff. What do you think, Nick?
It's interesting, right? We kind of got to watch the whole Uber thing develop behind the scenes and privately, but there was a lot of news about it. And it almost feels the same, right? These companies, you mentioned Facebook. They have this product, right? Some very young, inexperienced person develops this product, puts it out there, and it's the greatest thing. They go public, and now it's this constant quarter after quarter. You have to keep innovating, and it's just a different mentality. And I really agree that the culture matters, and you have to breed that from inside your business. Otherwise, you get bought, or you end up buying people to take that over, and that just further dilutes your culture. You look at what Square is doing, right? Other Jack Dorsey company, and a little bit more innovation there, arguably, right? I think the Square credit's really interesting, and the way they're giving loans based on their transactional business. There's good things happening, but I agree that the kind of cultural statements don't exactly match the way it looks like Twitter's going internally. And then you put in all the regulatory pressure and the political pressure. He's become such a platform that it's tough to weed through all that.
It's interesting because with Dorsey we've got two companies, right? So we could almost kind of have a little control here group almost in a way to see maybe there's just something about running a social media company that's tough.
No, I think it's hard to disagree with that, and I think if you took Square out of it, he's more known for his role in starting Twitter and what Twitter's became, and you look at what Twitter actually is. It was a really good idea, and I may listen to a recent interview, and we made this so that we could kind of communicate with each other, and it turned into this. At no means did he realize that it was going to become, the president's one of his primary forms of communication.
Right.
Also, it was, kind of the first of its kind. There's so much with these social media companies that throw Facebook and Instagram and all that in there too, that there really is no precedence for what the right move is. And so he's kind of made those comments too, that we're going to try things, and sometimes they're going to be a mistake, and we got to try things along the way. And I have a tremendous amount of respect for having that confidence and going and making these companies and what they've done so far.
Yeah. What about the two companies thing, Lucia? If Twitter starts to struggle, then do people have to say, hey, look, you got to pick one, man?
I don't know. To me, it depends on how good his leadership teams are. If he has a strong leadership team and they can run the company without him, well, great. I think it appears there's not as much gossip about Square, that Square is doing a better job of acting as a team and working as a company, and maybe it's because he was older when he got there, and maybe he didn't make some of the same naive mistakes. I don't really know. There's not enough written about it. Yeah. It's very clear he doesn't have a strong enough leadership team. There's too many people that go behind each other's back, that go to the board, that leak to the press. And when that happens, there isn't trust in a company. And a company without trust, to me, is going to have a very hard time innovating, unless it's by luck. And much of Twitter's innovation has been by luck.
How sort of monumental do you think Zuckerberg, Dorsey, maybe even Spiegel, who knows what's going to happen with Snap, but in its own way, it was pretty revolutionary too in terms of communicating through images. Are these people going to be, due to their launch of the social media space? I guess it's still up in the air.
Yeah,
right?
I think it's too much up in the air to predict whether or not they're willing to keep growing. Yeah. You want to talk about Jeff Bezos later, but he's the perfect example of someone who kept finding the long term. His mantra all along through his whole company is not to be short-term oriented, to think big, to invest in the future, to try that next big idea, to not worry about the critics, and to see where it goes. And if you believe in it, it will happen. And certainly they're proof that that can occur, and it keeps happening.
Yeah.
You kind of set, you look at Amazon, you look at Google, right? I know we're not really talking Google CEO, but they with Singularity University, and they want to affect the lives of 1 billion people. These aren't like, I want to put out 140 characters and innovate on that.
Right.
They're like, think completely new business models and put that out there. I think that's what's separating kind of the behemoths that we see in the space, but they're not really in one space, right? They're doing all of these things, and it's hard to see where they're going to make their next $1 billion, but they're really out there innovating on the edge in multiple areas. And I think it's a great point Lucia makes, that it's about having leadership in each of those areas, right? You can't tell me that Bezos knows every detail about every one of those businesses, right? But you have to have great people leading those divisions to make sure that they all come back together and have one common goal.
Is that almost kind of an irony of Bezos, because he's kind of held up as this image as being the corporate leader of our time, and I think the point here is that, look, for that sprawling enterprise, there must be a lot of other great people there behind him.
There are a lot of great people. I worked at Amazon in the 90s. I mean, that's a long time ago. And when you think about it, no one believed people were going to buy books online. They had a real high market cap, weren't making money, nobody believed in it, and look what's happened. Who could have imagined in the 1990s that it not only would be the place where you buy books, it would be the place that you buy everything. And today you'd be having an interview with Whole Foods. I mean, you couldn't have dreamt that. But that's, I think, to your point, what Twitter is not doing, and what Mary Barra, by the way, is doing.
Right.
Are you willing to cannibalize your business? Right. Are you willing to bet on the future? Are you willing to buy Cruise? Are you willing to go for the autonomous vehicle? Yeah. Are you willing to make those bold moves against the fray? Yeah. And she is. I think she's great, personally.